Well, hello everyone. I'm Tamara, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to dive deep, and I mean deep, 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 into what it looks like when you have a borderline wife and a narcissistic husband. And you can see this type of relationship in celebrity world quite often. And so the more high functioning the relationship is, the better the relationship will be. If it's dysfunctional, like if the people are very low functioning, you're gonna have disaster, train wreck, drug addicts. I mean, just gutter. Picture that celebrity couple, the glitz, the glamour, the gold, the diamonds, and it seems like their life is so amazing, like they've got it all together. They go out together and they shine. The borderline and narcissist are two deeply difficult people. Anytime you have to spend a lot of time around either one of these, it's going to drive you crazy because they both have acting out behaviors. The narcissist has an insatiable need for glory and praise and look at me, and they can also be very vicious. And then the borderline is extremely needy in some areas, and they can also have very intense anger and difficulty controlling it. And so you've got a firestorm. They can both take jabs at each other, they can both break each other's self-esteem. Picture that celebrity, right? So we're gonna take the borderline female. She's gonna have to have at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging, whether it's spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. There's going to be some acting out behavior there. And so she might have multiple partners. It might be a couple that they secretly swing. We can both be with other people inside of our marriage if we want to. And so you've got that craziness going on, even though they look like everything is great. They're also going to have frantic efforts to avoid abandonment. And so they can be super clingy, they can feel very empty inside. They're just going to be acting out a lot. And then, not to mention, they're probably having some suicidal behavior, gestures, self-harming behaviors. They also struggle very deeply with their identity. So some days they're this person, the next month they've decided that they are another identity. So fluctuating identities. This narcissist is married to this borderline, and they have children. What do you think is going to happen to the children? Well, that borderline mother might have the idea that you can be whoever you want, do whatever you want, act however you want. You can color your hair any kind of color. You can stay out late at night. You get to make your own decisions in life, because I did as a child. I was free to do whatever I wanted to. Why? Because I didn't have a dad. My mother was always gone, or she was strung out on drugs, so I raised myself. So you get to make decisions, adult decisions, at a very young age. So what is that going to create? More chaos. Children are born to have parents, directions, boundaries, guidance, guidelines, to give them structure that makes them feel safe. And so now you're creating an identity disturbance in that kid. But the borderline doesn't have a stable identity themselves. So how do you pass on an identity to someone when you don't even understand what that means? So now you've got crazy chaos going on. And I can guarantee you they are gonna have some movie-like screaming matches, acting a fool behind closed doors. Why? Because borderlines have difficulty managing their emotions. There's a lot of emotional instability for day-to-day events. So they may feel sadness, irritability, anxiety, and that's what they may identify with is, why do I always feel anxious? Why do I always feel depressed? But they have very unstable relationships because they can have intense anger. Now imagine a borderline with intense anger coming towards a narcissist. They're gonna really tamper with their ego because borderlines are walking emotions, but narcissists are walking egos, like ego to the 1000th degree. And so they're gonna constantly trigger each other and drive each other nuts. So borderlines can have intense anger and difficulty controlling their temper. They're gonna have some constant anger sometimes. They may have recurring physical fights. They also want to test boundaries. Are you going to leave me if I act a fool? Are you going to stay with me? Are you going to abandon me? So it's like that thing that they fear the most is what they cause to happen. Borderlines can also be secretive, which is also interesting because they divulge way too much. Have you ever met this person and they tell you, oh yes, I was beaten when I was a kid, and they tell you all this stuff and you don't even know them very well? But on the flip side of that, they can be very secretive about some of the things that they're doing, the acting out. They can be great at hiding that, especially if they're high functioning. Have you ever seen a really good fight scene? I'm talking the woman is in the man's face, screaming at him, emasculating him, telling him how worthless he is and why didn't you defend me and take up for me. And then the man is back in her face, screaming at her, slapping her in the face, throwing her against the wall. I mean, they are going at it. They have these crazy, raging arguments, and then when the outside world sees them, they're smiling and everything is great. But I promise you, on the inside, unless they have just really done some serious work on themselves, you've got two people triggering each other constantly. Two deeply needy, superficial people. They're gonna have a bunch of chaos at all times. Being with someone in a relationship who has a narcissistic personality disorder can be super challenging because they have an inflated sense of ego and entitlement. They put themselves first, they lack empathy, and can become abusive to others. A romantic relationship with someone with BPD can be, in a word, stormy. It's not uncommon to experience a great deal of turmoil and dysfunction. People with borderline personality disorder have a pattern of intense and unstable relationships, and this could involve the shift from extreme adoration and, oh, you're so amazing, to extreme dislike, like, I can't stand you. And relationships may be marked by attempts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. I don't want you to leave me. I'm very attached to you, so now I'm going to be fighting with you. It's difficult to deal with one of these personality disorders. Imagine having both of these disorders in the same household. They are going to constantly trigger each other's weaknesses. Say that narcissistic husband grew up in a house with a stepfather and a mother, and he watched the stepfather beat his mother, knock her out unconscious, and he's a young child, no brothers and sisters, and he's seeing all of that. What does that do to the person? Even if they're not a narcissist, they could develop narcissistic tendencies. Why? Narcissism is often developed when a child is placed in an adult role. Imagine the terror, the frightening feeling that you have of helplessness. These are the people who take care of me. Now I've got this violent person who's standing here who's okay, but he's knocked out the person that I trust, that I need to take care of me, but she can't handle him because he's violent towards him. Where does that leave a child? What does that do to a psyche? Think about it. You are essentially all alone. You don't have anybody to turn to in the sense of, I can trust you to protect me. You can't even protect yourself from this violent person, and I'm scared of this violent person too. So you're going to inflate yourself. You're going to make your ego bigger. You're going to have to disengage in some way, or you might even act out, but you've got to inflate your ego in order to handle a very adult situation that even adults can't handle. And so that's what often happens, and how narcissistic personality disorder can also be created. I was helpless as a child, but I'm not anymore. Now I'm on the stage, the grand stage, under the lights, under the cameras, on the red carpet. I am somebody big. I am important. I am being admired. I am making up for that pitiful, helpless feeling. And now everybody is looking at me, and I'm amazing. I'm on top. So picture two chaotic people. So you're going to have a borderline who has a chaotic life, fears of abandonment, and then the narcissist is going to take advantage or manipulate others while having a little empathy for others' concerns. So this bond between the abuser and the abused is the thing that holds the relationship together. Their bond can be very strong, dynamic, and very codependent, but don't get it twisted. People might look at the narcissist like they're abusive, but that borderline is going to be abusive as well. Remember, they can go into rages, and they may feign innocent. Both of them can feign innocent. With narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder can accuse their mate of being physically and emotionally abusive when they are those things themselves. But neither of these takes ownership of the things that they do. It's almost like a deep blind spot. Some people accuse them of lying, like, you know you've been abusive towards me, and they won't own up to it, even if you give them specific examples of what they did. And that is the turbulent part of the relationship with them, is if you can't admit that you've done something wrong, like you have no recollection, no memory, then how can you solve the problem? But these two can be very attracted to each other. When the borderline sees the narcissist, they see things that they are not and what they can and cannot do, and they're amazed by the narcissist's confidence. Narcissists can be boastful and arrogant, and this can really validate their own character and boost their own self-esteem and make them feel safe at first. Borderlines can feel abandoned, anxious, and emotionally dysregulated, and the pattern begins all over again when they get with a narcissist, because the borderline's anxiety triggers the narcissistic wounds and makes them feel like withdrawing. Both individuals unconsciously and consciously use manipulation and control of others to meet their own emotional needs, and it is extremely draining and toxic. And over time, this relationship is going to crumble. It's going to be a hot mess full of turbulence, chaos, roller coaster rides where neither of us is stable, and so we're doing things that are just crazy. But it's your fault. It's your fault that we're having all these issues and these problems, and we have a life that is cracking at every seam. And the narcissist might be doing all kinds of manipulative things, but don't you mess with my thing. This is my thing, and you're not going to insult her. So he might knock you out for doing anything because this is my thing. Borderlines can fall in love very quickly because they're looking for someone to save them, and they may attach to the new person thinking that this person is going to make me whole, only to be disappointed again, and then the relationship either seems perfect or horrible, and there's nothing in the middle. There's no balance. It's either great or awful. They start splitting. It's wonderful or awful. So behind the closed doors of this narcissistic borderline relationship, you've got a very scandalous, discreditable, disreputable, defamatory, malicious relationship going on with a lot of rebelliousness. The narcissist is going to act as if they're always right and that they know better, and their partner is bad, incompetent, always wrong. But how would that leave you feeling? It would make you feel angry. You would defend yourself all the time, or you would start to develop a very negative self-image and feel badly about yourselves. And that's how the borderline starts to feel when they're in a relationship with these people. Even though, like I said, borderlines can also be very abusive with their intense anger. They can make you feel awful, like you're never meeting their needs, like you don't do anything right either, like you're the reason I'm suffering inside and why I feel horrible all the time. It's all your fault. So what once started as I'm lavishing you with the most exquisite gifts, roses, flowers, chocolates, dazzling you with things that are way too expensive to give somebody that I barely know, this narcissist is really pouring it on, making that borderline feel very well taken care of and so deeply loved by this surface materialistic stuff. And then everything crumbles. And I feel sorry for kids who are born into these situations, but then they go on to repeat the same cycles, and they don't have identities, and then they're touting to the world that they're polyamorous now too, because they're trying so hard to connect with their parent, their mother, their father, and they just can't seem to do it. And then you start seeing identity issues in them, and it just goes on and on and on. Super toxic. These relationships can be super toxic where they don't support each other unless, we're mired in chaos and now we're going to stand up for each other in the limelight. But other than that, there's conflict. One is seeking to undermine the other. There's competition. There's a lack of support. They are misunderstood, demeaned, attacked. How can you be emotionally available when you have so much stuff going on in your own psyche? It's very impossible. You're going to have an extremely toxic and difficult and triggering relationships. These people will have difficulty with conflict resolution. Instead of taking responsibility and being honest with each other, both individuals take action on their own, and they're going to be doing a lot of fussing and fighting instead of sorting out the details and coming to clear compromise. But how can you do that when your personality is being impacted by a disorder? It's very hard to get it together. Now, the thing about celebrities is they can pay people to do certain things for them. They can pay to get help or do things or put things into place to make them look or feel better than they actually are, but still there's only so much hiding a person can do. There's gonna be some craziness going on. Just curious, have you ever been in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline? What was that like? And do you know any celebrity couples that you think are a borderline narcissistic couple where there's really a lot of chaos and acting out? Let us know in the comments, and definitely check out my book, The Workplace Narcissist. It is all about narcissism, strategies for dealing with them, the difficulties. I really take you into their minds, put you in their shoes, and give you a look at what that feels like and what it looks like. And I think it can really help you if you've ever been stuck or damaged in a relationship with these people. So check it out. If you're having love issues, check out my book, Flip the Script on Love. It will help you to heal, especially if you've been in a relationship with one of these two personality disorders. It's nothing to joke or play with. It can be extremely life altering. So you guys take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.